They can't stop the day we dissect the news, flipping on the edge, choices to choose. Politics and laughter, a blend that's so real. Tune in for the stories that make you feel. With guests from every angle, let's bridge the divide. Finding the truth in the humor we can't hide.
Yeah, so tell us, like, what's the worst case you've? I mean, no names, obviously, but like, what's the worst? What's the
of
worst
course, names and
what's
photos.
the worst case, your brother, that you ever saw in your life? Of
I don't know, because I don't see them as. I don't know if I.
Well,
see
I think
them
I remember
that way.
you saying some interesting stories when you were at North Carolina that you did in the clinic there.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't. That's a great question. Well, no, I do. I can probably think of one of my, like, what I think is one that has turned out to be one of the best scenarios ever. Was a gentleman that had been treated by a couple other dentists. And it just went very bad. I mean, it went really bad. Some of his implants failed. They took all of the teeth out. I can't say, because I don't know the beginning story, but probably a lot of his teeth were failing. He was in need of extensive care, but they kind of sold him on this, like, we're going to put all these implants in and we're going to put teeth in the same day and then goodbye.
the same day.
And then, so, a few weeks later, he takes his dentures out and there's implants in the denture. So,
Oh my God.
yeah, so that doesn't usually work out real well.
So I don't understand how that. So the implants were under the denture.
So the process sometimes that is done is teeth are taken out. If all the parameters are right, implants can go in and a fixed set of teeth can be screwed into place on those implants. And when I say parameters, like, not a smoker, not a crazy, like, doesn't open bottle caps,
Popcorn eater.
Yes.
Crystal meth
Yes.
and that kind of stuff. Yeah,
all that kind of stuff. So if all those things are in line, as someone that's, well controlled, diabetes or something like that, like, they're medically what we call an ASA2, sometimes an ASA3, then they can fit that category where we would put teeth in the same day. And it is a great procedure. Don't get me wrong. I love doing those because they're very transformational, because they can go from like a disaster, to like, oh, we gotta have teeth and I can function. What is still controversial is the type of dentures that we call snap-in dentures. Loading those, when we say loading, like starting to use the implants immediately. I personally don't do that. I think that puts things at a much higher risk. And I don't like to have failures, 6 months down the road, and then we got to start all over again. That just sets back, like, it's the same thing. You're like, oh, now we're 9 months or 12 months. You have to do it all over again. So this gentleman had seen somebody locally. He's actually, the dentist that he saw is not here any longer. Unfortunately, that dentist has practiced in 3 or 4 other states that I've been able to find out that he has other lawsuits against him.
Oh, wow.
So we don't have very many bad apples, but this is one. And unfortunately, this gentleman was, was treated by him. So teeth are out, implants go in, implants fail. The few that didn't were all in very bad locations. So there was no way for me to use those implants. And so we had to start all over. So I worked with a local oral surgeon. It took a long time to get him completed, but I see him probably every 4 or 5 months now, just for checkups. He's got a teeth in, and he's like, I can't tell you how you changed my life.
Yeah, to not be able to chew food
Wow.
is you just take it for granted,
Yeah,
and
he was the one that told me. He goes, I have tried every single container of soup at the grocery store. He's like, from top to bottom. I was like, well, could you tell me which ones are good? I could tell all the other patients that way now. He was like, yes, Wolfgang Puck, this one's good, this one's good. He's like, I have had all of them because he was without teeth
a
for
liquid diet, basically. Almost.
Yeah, for like 1.5 years. It took a long time to get everything completed because we had to start all over. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that's like one of the, more challenging scenarios. But I don't really think of them as like
disasters or whatever.
Right.
Well, because they all, in my office, they're all complex. So I think of it as like,
It's a
"Ooh,
challenge.
this is a big challenge. What am I going to do
It's
with
the
this
growth
one?"
mindset, right?
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
how can things improve?
Yep. And there are some situations where I'm like, I don't know how I want to handle this. I actually have to like.
Yeah, have you ever
I gotta-
turned anybody away? Like you're like, this is out of my realm. I don't think I can.
Yeah, I do. I have been. I have been known to do that when I don't feel like I'm a good fit. There's maybe a personality difference, because I don't
That's interesting.
I don't
Yeah.
respond well always to people that tell me what to do.
Who does? What? Who does?
That sounds really arrogant. I know,
No, but imagine going to your doctor and being like, "You're doing this wrong," and you're like, "Did you go to medical school?"
yeah. So I'll put it as like we just have a difference in philosophy, and if they want me to use a specific material and I'm not familiar with it, or I don't think that's the best thing for them, like a example is like a snap-on smile. You've probably heard of these.
No.
It
Okay,
sounds like
good.
a
I'm glad you
Halloween
haven't. Maybe you've
costume.
heard about
Yeah.
it.
Sounds
They
like
don't.
something for
I don't
Halloween.
think they
Snap-on
need-
tools.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
Yeah.
it is like that. I don't even think they need FDA approval because people are making them in their kitchens.
Oh.
But it is a quick fix. That maybe the only time I would use them is like somebody has a wedding that night. Okay, well, they can be fabricated very quickly, using some computers and their technology, but they don't last. But the problem is that patients will see that and be like, oh, I can just get a snap-on smile for $150. They think that's a lot of money. Then they go in, they eat an apple, it falls apart. They're back, they're yelling, this is not what I paid for, and this doesn't work, and how dare you? And so I go, well, this is why I don't sell snap-on smiles. They just don't do it. There are others in town that will, and that's what I mean. So if I get a request for something like that, I'm like, you know what? I'm probably not the best fit, but I can help you find somebody who might be a better fit.
We'll snap on your smile.
Yes.
It sounds like a Halloween gimmick.
Well, that is actually how they started.
Yeah,
It
it's
was
like a
Halloween.
Oh, wow.
like the wax. The
Yeah, the wax
teeth,
lips and the snap-on
wax
smile.
lips and stuff.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So occasionally I get requests for that. They want just their canines long.
Chip, were you asking for your canines to
Was
get
that-
kind of like
was that-
Canine
Yeah.
extension.
No?
I just don't smile much. I don't have to worry about it.
He wants a snap off smile.
Snap on frown. Just a permanent frown I could have.
So, Chip, what are some of the interesting interventions you've had with the wound care equipment? What is yours called? What is it?
Well, it's currently called the VHT 200.
Okay.
By company Vaporox.
Okay.
But I don't work with the patients. I mean,
Like
because of HIPAA and
testimonials?
stuff, it's intentional. Like they don't
You're
don't want
lucky.
me interacting with patients.
You're done. You're done.
So,
Because of this.
Yes.
Because
Not-
of the
not
snap
because
on
of you.
frown.
yes, if I could get a snap-on smile, they would have me with patients daily. But no, truthfully,
But
it's
testimonials.
You never had to
that
deal with
have-
like any bad doctors or anything, like that didn't want to deal with your gear or didn't want to listen to how to use it correctly or whatnot.
Well, I think you probably hit on something there. There are some doctors who feel they know a better way to treat than what we've proven to be. But our device basically says, it's at the discretion of the doctor. I mean, here's recommended practice, but it's always at the medical provider to decide. But of course, we have disclaimers and things. It's a treatment environment. At this current time, it's not meant to put on your head, which actually wouldn't harm them because there's always airflow things. But just to be legal on it, it's you don't want to put a plastic bag over your head and walk away.
You don't? Yeah, okay.
Unless you're wearing a plastic smile.
Nobody's ever complained about it, so there you go.
Special plastic bag.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's right.
But no, to answer your question, I just don't interact at that level. I mean, if I do, the patients have agreed to talk, and normally it's after treatment, or if it's something to say, was it comfortable? Did you feel anything? Was it, hurtful or anything or painful? So that's kind of what I do most of the time. And as far as testimonials and stories, they're, again, due to HIPAA, can never really put stuff out. But I mean, the stories we do have, some of them on the website are incredible. I wish I could share them, but we've had really bad situations where, feet and legs have just been mangled. And, it was just skin pulled off and, toes off, everything. And the surgeons do their best to reconstruct, but they just don't have the health in the human body to heal their own wound. So that's when we come in, because, our product is there as a, kind of an adjunct therapy to help. And so they have to try and heal it normally for about 30 days before they bring us in. Unless it's, skilled nursing facility, then they can use it how they want. But with certain podiatry offices and stuff, like they have to follow for billing reasons and medical stuff. They have to kind of use the standard care. And then if it's not progressing, they can make a judgment call, and they can always go faster if they want to. But whenever you're going to pay for a treatment, you got to have justification. And if it's a healthy person and they're healing, then it, probably will move along fairly quickly. But if it's not, they bring us into it. And so, but we have had some pretty incredible stories of saving limbs, preventing amputations. And just one particular story, again, where an individual had gotten their leg caught up against a chain link fence. And it was a typical just story of their leg dangling out. They got too close, and then it just kind of booted them and pulled the skin down. And they kind of had to bring it back and get it up, get it all healing faster. So that's the real benefit to it, is it just enables the body to heal itself faster.
Would it be possible to use it with animals too?
The problem with the animals is getting them to sit still.
Yeah.
Right. It's a 54-minute treatment, and so just to have them sit still and just let the treatment run is what would be the issue. But yeah, you could in theory, but it's not approved for any kind of veterinary use at this point.
I was just thinking of that when you said caught in a chain link fence. I was just thinking, I bet there's lots of animals that get that.
It really is the tip of the iceberg on the product. It's just any kind of a skin wound, it has proven to help. And so we're excited if we could just get past, being a smaller startup, get to where we could do more studies in all these other areas.
Yeah.
Just to be able to have more clinical evidence and show it.
Yeah.
But,
So will it always be available only to medical providers, or will it ever be over the counter?
At this point, I don't see how it could ever be just over the counter. I think that the bigger thing is, could it get it for home care use? Like, could a doctor prescribe it and then somebody could take it home, and if they, kind of used it on their own. But as of right now, and again, this kind of goes back to just regulatory, that whenever you have, a doctor prescribing and a doctor overseeing, it provides that protection on a new device. You can try things a little differently. Sometimes the larger you get. But, I did want to visit what you talked about with small businesses, that what I see happening in the medical world is large companies can't take the big financial risk of too many pioneering programs. So I think what we're going to see is that medical companies like us, small startups, are going to do the innovation, because quite frankly, the risk is lower. If one bad event happens and we happen to disappear while sad, it doesn't bring down like a Baxter or a Johnson & Johnson, right? And so it's almost to the point now where they can't afford that risk of getting these new innovative ideas on their own. Now they can buy them and then develop next generation. They can evolve the product, right? Yeah. They can do an awful lot with that. But in device development, small companies are going to be the ones that do the innovation. Large companies will buy them and then do economies of scale, globalize the product, and do it. With the exception, I think, of drugs. I don't know of any small company that can afford, a $7 million drug study, or, a development time that costs nearly $1 billion to do a study. So I think on the drug side, you'll do it, but on the, electromechanical, the hardware side and things like this, that's what I see, that you're going to, this is the evolution. There's going to be a lot of small startups. Investors are going to basically hit 1 out of 10, and they're going to hopefully make enough on that 10th unit, that 10th investment, that covers enough for those other 9 that don't make it. And that's just the way it's going to be, and that's the way I see it happening. And I just foresee that from now to the end of my career, I'll probably just be in startups, because I just don't think the big companies can afford to innovate And if you do go to a large company, you're basically going to be doing design enhancements, evolution of a product, continuing engineering, manufacturing, cost savings initiatives. And so I think if you want to be innovative, it's going to be small, and there's a risk. You talk about 401ks, a lot of small companies can't afford to give all that stuff. So you have to hope that, you're somewhat vested in equity in the company as a startup, that if it hits, you get it back. But it's kind of a pendulum. You're going to have some great days and some bad days. And I think that's the only way we're going to see innovation in at least the electromechanical, the device space of medical.
You still enjoy what you do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna
Most
say,
of the time.
That was going to be my question.
Yeah.
It just seems like both of you have found niches that are just really
Important.
I don't know, rewarding.
Yeah.
You
Absolutely.
It's needed what you do. The world's a better place because of what you both have engaged in, and it's just it's just so cool to see that's
Absolutely.
you're able to kind of follow a passion and a purpose and a higher. That's kind of a prime directive, right, Admar?
It is. Now, I did actually have a few questions. As far as the recent government cutbacks, as far as funding is concerned, how has that impacted the entire process as far as the... sorry, if I'm asking questions to which you're like...
Uncomfortable.
And that's where this conversation ends. But no, I was just genuinely curious as far as the FDA is concerned. How is that? Have you seen that in your field or fields? How that has impacted everything so far?
Well, I'll go quickly on this one. We did have a submission into the FDA where we got a notification that our lead reviewer had been let go, and they did not know when they would be able to get to reviewing our submission. That was on a 510K. Now, I think it was notified like on a Thursday or Friday, and then on the following Tuesday, we were notified that they'd been hired back, and were resuming their effort on the review and trying to get it done. So,
government.
To be clear, it's definitely the FDA is one of the big ones they've done, and there's been a lot of articles out there. In our direct field, that was the only one event. It didn't seem, it was more the administrative, a lot of the, I'm not going to say overhead, but, support staff kind of an environment. But that's all we've seen there. And I will just also end by tariffs. The whole trade war has already impacted us immensely on bringing product in from OUS, out of the US. So we've already seen lead times go up, costs go up. Had to get a tariff broker, an individual who helps get your product across, to collect, I think, the tariffs and get the paperwork in order. So it's kind of like money that was put here now is going to go here, but you're still putting out the same money. And so we've definitely seen increase and, disruption in product flow. And so we're just forces everyone to be more conservative. You got to build up buffer stock, order ahead of time, longer leads, right? You just got to anticipate. I don't want to comment on the intelligence of these moves, but yes, we're definitely being impacted.
That's on the heels of COVID, where supply chains were also sluggish for you.
Yeah.
Right at your startup time or right after. So you
Yeah.
can't catch a break.
That's why, as a startup, the fact we're still going is actually very impressive, because it was been a truly tough time to just navigate the waters. And I give our backers, our CEO, and everybody the credit they deserve, because they've kept us going in a time where, again, most startups don't make it this far.
Yeah.
Being into year 3.5 or whatever we're at. So.
Well, you're not really
Absolutely.
a startup now. Now it's almost like you're a full-fledged.
You're up.
Like you're up. You're up and in.
Just start without the up part. Just start.
Yeah, you start.
No, we're still a relatively small business. I guess if you're going to look at it
Well,
by
from medical,
size.
right? From
Yeah.
medical. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's like you've been
exactly.
going longer than 3 years, honestly.
Well, remember, we did all the development work before. When I talk about, the time the product was released in the market and things, but no, I think it's been about 5.5 years that I've personally been there. But first couple of years were, just getting the initial product to a point where we could start manufacturing, start testing, then get it released, get it into the marketplace, and get, a lot of feedback on it.
Excellent.
Yeah. I think maybe the only thing that two things that I've had come across, that like that scanner I was talking about, there's certain applications when when a device, well, you would know this, when a device is going to be used for something additional, it has to go through the FDA again. So like my scanner can scan teeth, but it supposedly can also detect dental decay. I don't use it for that, and I don't know that I ever would, but that's another application. But in order to meet that, it has to go through a testing process, and then the FDA has to clear it. And I think some of that's been put on pause because of the same thing. Like certain people got let go and then rehired, and so it just slows the process down. It'll still happen eventually. It's just going to take maybe a little bit more time. But the supply chain, so luckily I have not seen I saw a huge increase in costs the last 2 years. Just ridiculous. But during COVID, there was the same thing, like couldn't get masks, couldn't get gloves. Even though they were being made, there was just this ridiculousness with supply chain and whatnot. It would be great if we could get a few more companies in America to just make the supplies that we need, so we don't have to have, I don't care what country it comes from. And it would just be great if we could put some of that industry back into America and have masks and gloves and all that made, so we're not having to worry about the Panama Canal and whatnot.
Well, you just got to pay me $55 per second.
Eric will
I'll
make
do
all
it.
your masks.
I'll just sit there, one at a time.
Yeah.
Which we still have those masks.
Oh yeah.
Do you?
Yes.
And speaking of, does that scanner? Can we?
Factory working for mask making.
Does that scanner? Can I use it to try to find gold bullion coins that are in the ground? If I was to borrow it,
I don't know if it's indicated for that.
are you sure I could wander around the neighborhood? Beep, 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 beep.
It doesn't always scan as well when there's shiny objects.
Oh, shoot.
I meant to ask you just about being a woman running a business, if you see any challenges that maybe when you worked with male partner as in your first practice that you worked with, if you saw differences, and then also your speaking engagements that you do, how you got interested in doing that. So just commenting on that.
Yeah, those I can, kind of just briefly.
Yeah.
So when I was accepted to dental school, yes, there were not as many females in the field. And I would say, so that was 2003 I graduated. The next 5 years after that, there was a big push to get more females into dentistry. And it worked. Now really, I think it's probably almost 50-50. What's interesting about that, though, is a lot end up becoming part-time, or there's not as many of me. There are some, but a lot of them end up becoming part-time. They have families, they get married, they have kids. It's really hard to juggle all of that and still manage a business, full-time. That being said, yes, it can be done. There are sacrifices that have to be made, and in my situation were made, and there's some good and bad with that, just life stuff that comes along with that. But I think now there's less of a stigma of it just kind of being like a good old boys dental club, and only certain people are going to be in, or certain guys are going to be in. So females have definitely made some huge strides in the dental arena. I still occasionally, although it doesn't happen very much anymore, but 10 years ago or even 15 years ago, when I would walk into the operatory, they'd ask, "Oh, are you the hygienist? Or are you the assistant?"
Wow.
I'm like, "No, I'm Dr. Batson, nice to meet you." So I get that less now. So there definitely has been a change in perception. I can't even think of the last time I had a male patient say, "Who do you think you are? What do you think you're doing?" Or are you even qualified to do this? You should be in the kitchen, no, you actually really don't want me in the kitchen. Yeah. No one benefits from that. Yeah. So I think there's definitely been, in a positive way, good things that have happened for females in dentistry. And then your
speaking engagements.
Oh,
what got
yes.
you started on that?
Well, I had a company approach me, I guess that was maybe 2 or 3 years ago, as they were going through post-COVID. so COVID took a big hit, or the dental education field took a big hit during COVID because we couldn't travel to go to courses or give courses. So a lot of it was done virtually. I remember asking you for some help. I'm like, what's a green screen?
Yeah.
I don't know what that is. So now that we're back in person, last year was a really busy year for, like the last 2 years were really busy, just really engaging people in person again, which I think, again, kind of goes back to like social media. You know, you can only kind of learn so much from a phone or from a computer screen. For certain things, especially hands-on, three-dimensional, you need to like see, you know, and experience and feel what's going on. So the company approached me for just, you know, would you be interested in doing some speaking? And I said yes. So I went through some training for that. That was very, you know, it was fun and beneficial. And I mean, it helps expand me. It helps me expand my knowledge because I learn something from every group when I go to speak. I mean, constantly. Like sometimes I think, no, I don't know it all, but I'm like, I've seen a lot, you know. And then I'll go somewhere and someone will show me an X-ray. I was like, oh no, I have not seen everything yet. That's very interesting. But I get a lot of good questions, you know, just it's like good one-on-one time. And I mean, I hope with these groups, what to be able to bring to them is, you know, the benefit of them knowing they're not on an island of one. You know, they should be able to ask questions. That's something we don't talk a lot about in dentistry, but I always get questions like, why is there a high suicide rate? Like, why are dentists, like, are we that crazy? Well, we're a little bit crazy, but there is unfortunately a high suicide rate in the dental field.
It's the nitrous gas. It's nitrous gas.
No, that should probably help people.
Yeah.
Maybe we should do more of that. No, I don't know.
And
if
what's
I would say that, but-
what's the explanation or one of the theories or hypotheses?
Yeah, so I think dentistry is a very it is very technically and physically demanding. You don't always think about that. You just think of like, well, how hard can it be? It's just a little tooth. But you saw like my magnifiers and we're sitting in a certain position for hours, and it is very easy for a dentist to beat up on themselves. You know, I didn't get that perfect, or I wish I would have, you know, done something different to make it look like this or like that. So most of us are very type A. Like we just want it to be perfect. So for some, if they can't achieve that, that's, you know, that's not good. They're rejecting themselves. They think that they're being rejected. You know, they're just like this waterfall ends up happening, and then clinical depression, you know, it just starts to...
And patients are reviewing you online and giving this feedback, and that's tough.
Yeah.
Sure.
Like
patients can be hard. I've seen some of the ones in your office.
Yeah, they can.
Yeah.
Well, they can be brutal.
They can be really
with
tough
online
to deal
reviews,
with.
Yeah.
and we can't really do anything because of HIPAA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, if I respond to that, I'm setting myself up for a potential HIPAA violation.
Yeah.
So I just don't respond. That's been and I do not like reviews.
Yeah.
That's like another thing that's a huge, like, oh, I'm going to check out the reviews, go for it. But I'm not going to solicit reviews from patients. I would rather them just, oh, your neighbor needs somebody, give them my card. That's good enough. I don't need the like constant affirmation of like, you know, I have to be careful again what I say there, because that's like a big part of what they tell you to do in dentistry is get reviews. But
Yeah.
I don't want them. I'm good.
Yeah.
But going back to like the island of one, dentists have I think we're just predisposed to it. You know, we can really get down on ourselves, and then, you know, then we have staffing problems, and there's money problems or supply. There's just always something to be done. And then, yeah, you don't have a connection with other colleagues or another network or study club or, you know, some sort of social outlet where you can just go and vent or get ideas about how to handle certain scenarios. And so, yeah, there is a lot of...
and your hands are like in your patients' mouths, and so they can't even talk to you. They can only grunt. All right.
They try. They try and talk. That's like a whole different language.
Yeah.
I've never been able to like really get it. My assistants are fabulous at it. They're like, yeah, didn't you hear that? They said they need, I didn't know at all. Good thing I have them there.
They had a wonderful summer break, and their daughter's Jennifer. And
I
how
love
did you
that.
get that from?
Yeah, I know that it's a whole different language, but they get it. So the speaking engagements, that's a big part of, just like trying to circle back there. That's a big part of, I wanted to do that to try to connect other individuals and other dentists to share experiences and to not be afraid to bring their questions and their, of what works and what doesn't work and what are they struggling with. And it's okay if you didn't learn it in school, it doesn't, don't just keep asking ChatGPT. It's not going to give you the answer.
Right.
It's probably not going to be correct. Like,
Oh my gosh.
just find somebody in a group of dentists that you can connect with and associate with and vent and explore and learn. And so that's what I really got into the speaking, to do.
Awesome.
Nice.
Very nice.
Nice.
But I had also wanted to just ask about to what extent do you get involved in trying to raise venture capital? But just, I was curious about that because that's also just such a huge part of your startup. Do you get involved in that at all, having to bring in investors?
No. I've been involved in zero investor recruitment or venture capital funding, achieving or however you want to say.
Yeah.
I don't know if it in other small companies, if that would be expected in mine, but I've been very insulated in it for whatever reasons. So I can't claim any
Because that seems
involvement.
like a pain in the ass.
Yeah, from what I was going
Yeah.
to say, I think that you're dodged a bullet by some of that stuff.
How many
That's,
people are in your company?
Oh, I think right now we'd have 10 full-time
Okay.
people.
Yeah, you're small.
Yeah.
You're small. That's beautiful. That's she teaches the orgcom stuff, and I'm telling you, once you hit like 50 employees, things just get,
think
even in our school, it's like
is it
about
100?
65
Is that it?
employees, and even with that,
How many do you have, Emily?
Of 8.
8?
yeah, that's
So
beautiful.
you guys are
Yeah.
similar.
It's beautiful.
I mean, I don't know, 20. I'm
Yeah.
not sure
No.
I could handle that.
Oh.
I'd have to have another dentist.
Yeah.
Just, that's just a lot of
Yeah.
bodies.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like at our school, we get 1,000 kids, and I just things just become exponential.
Yeah.
Even
Herding
thinking about
cats.
it. Yeah, even
Yeah.
thinking about it just kind of makes my
But
blood
you have
pressure
to
go
use
up.
external production and
To be clear on that, we use contract manufacturing organizations. Those are CMOs. So we actually produce nothing in-house.
Yeah.
All of it's contracted out to manufacturing sites. So that's very important. So we basically have myself as an engineer, and we have a quality engineer, so it's a staff of 2 in the engineering. Most of it's sales, marketing, and the CEO does all of that fundraising kind of activities. Which is good because there's not a chance I could do both.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be very good at
full-time
it, honestly. It's
Yeah.
not at all what I enjoy doing. I don't want to be trying to sell it, but fortunately the product's so effective on that end. It isn't. It's just more how quickly can you return? What's your likelihood of success? What's your business model? What have you proven to be effective, not effective? And that's really what you do. You start out small, even smaller than we are now. I think we started out with 4 people, and you get a few out there, you get going, you get something developed, you get a next generation, you get in the marketplace, and you just have to go for it. But I will give all the credit to our CEO and the sales group, because it's very tough being that small. I mean, you can't call up with the clout of say Baxter, or as I keep saying, Johnson & Johnson or whatever. You just can't walk in if you don't have a name like that. So they have to work hard to get their foot in the door, which word of mouth is a big part of it as well. But you got to be successful, and that's the key.
Yeah, deliver
Yeah.
on your promises. Absolutely. So fascinating.
Ever since COVID, we've just kind of the education model is
whatever.
just we're in. You talk about disruption, like the world that we're living in, especially K-12, but in hers as well, is just, it's hard to even describe. Just like this job now, this career now versus what it was like in 2017, is you might as well.
Yeah.
If you were a teacher in 2017, how you might answer the questions at a job interview, how you might address a curriculum review, how you might just even approach something like an IEP, which is like a special plan for kids who have disabilities and stuff. It's just night and day now.
You just have to be careful what you say, and
yeah, and everything is on an online platform, and everything is now modularized, where it's like, I don't know, it's very, very different. And there's even schools now that are experimenting with just replacing teachers.
Oh, great!
And you just sit in front of a screen all day. I'm just kind of like, oh God, so we're having to refocus for us, like on relationship pieces, like what is it that makes teaching an art? Like you guys talked about an art and science. Like for us, the science part is going to keep going. We'll never be able to match the computer stuff. So what is it that we bring to it, like that makes a difference for kids or for patients or for clients and stuff? Yeah. That's really, I think, in the future of any career that people are going to be pursuing.
You become an intermediary. You are that connection. You're that link. I feel like we've all been sold on the idea that the internet, computers, and everything is actually going to enable us to have this incredibly illuminated life moving forward. What we have lost is that connection with each other, with other people, and how we actually interact and how we ultimately. It's one thing to gather the information and have that information present. It's another thing to be able to digest the information, or to digest the information and then give that information to someone who may not fully understand it in a way that they do. Yeah. And I feel like that's the whole job of a teacher. You know more than the other person, so your job is to feed that information to someone in such a way and to make it relatable, to make it understandable, and to actually make it meaningful. So it's one thing to have something. It's another thing to actually ascribe a certain sense of purpose to it. And I feel like if we move in that direction, then all the other technologies are going to be super beneficial, which is kind of interesting because I was, really fascinated with all the information here today. And I'm actually kind of curious to know a little bit more about, from a corporate perspective, especially being a small business. It's kind of interesting because I feel like oftentimes once something is able to be monetized, what we see is just the complete absence of purpose, more on the focus on just the monetary part. For example, corporate inversions are still a thing. For example, if the internet can correct me if I'm wrong, but if I recall correctly, it's Northern Ireland that is actually home to more medical businesses than any other place in the world, due to the fact that they actually get incredible tax breaks. And it's effectively a tax haven where if a company, especially one that is being subsidized by the American taxpayer, where a lot of these studies actually do cost a significant amount of money, it's all funded by the American taxpayer. The company basically turns around, one big company snatches it up and buys the patent, says, all right, so we are going to be registered in Northern Ireland. We are no longer going to pay for any of the services that we got to enjoy, which unfortunately, based on the information, thank you, by the way, Chip, that was really insightful. As far as the FDA being concerned, well, it's a non-for-profit, which means how is it going to be funded? So if we're not really putting some of these, little, snippets of back taxes or any other way to fund these organizations, we're going to end up in a circumstance where things are going to take even longer to get approval, to get tested, to get a strong market foothold. And I feel like there needs to be a change, but it's not there.
Yeah, an incentive. I mean, of course, the best incentive is always financial. Right, that's what most companies would say.
Like, it can be. I mean, it sometimes.
I mean, I hate to say it, but
yeah,
that's typically like nobody wants to say
in America.
Business is business.
Yeah. They'll say we want a financial incentive for
setting
up
Friedman.
Yes,
business
Friedman
and
quote.
XYZ.
A little bit of Friedman quote.
Yeah, I know.
A little bit.
But it is. I mean, it does kind of go back to like what's the deeper meaning behind what we do.
Yeah, well, that's why I'd ask that. Like your backgrounds about like why you chose to. Because you both make very good livings, but it goes beyond. I mean, it is nice to be able to take nice vacations and provide for your children, but then beyond that, there's like this legacy piece that like you're doing something that's it matters. I mean, it really matters. It's.
I mean, the way that
in the case of chip stuff, I mean, you're literally saving lives.
Yeah.
I mean, you're probably saving lives too. Like you're talking about people that
Definitely,
like because those infections, right? Your
people
oral
can't eat
health
without-
is well, your oral health is
it
related to
becomes
your
much
heart
harder.
health
Yeah.
and everything else.
But
So.
I think of it as like if I have the ability to rehabilitate one person so that they're confident and comfortable and functional, they then can contribute to society in the same way.
Yeah.
You know, whether it's through their job or their connections with other people or whatever they do in their lives. I mean, I don't love it when they're like, I can never come out of the house because I can't smile. I mean, I hear that all the time, but it's like, okay, let's work on making you functional again so you can be part of society and be productive in society. I mean, that's how I kind of think about it, because if that's my one contribution, then that person can go out and do the same thing for, 10 or 15 or 20 or hundreds of others, whatever they do, public speaking or whatever, they're involved in.
Yeah.
But I would think, and I mean, I don't want to speak for Chip, but if it's the same, they're healed now, so they can become functional again in society and, lead a productive life and contribute overall to something good within within civilization.
Yeah,
but
like
I don't know if that's what
the
motivates
Prime Directive.
Chip or not. I'm not sure.
It's all about the bling. So I'm saving up for my diamond encrusted, and this gives me the best opportunity.
With our 10 million subscribers.
That tracks.
There you go. You
So-
can see. That's
so-
all important.
We
He
should
wants a Rolex on each
Rolex.
big tooth.
a toothlex.
Little Rolex watches right here.
Roflex.
Yeah,
We're gonna have
Roflex.
Roflex across the grill. But I will just answer. I've actually been in medical for so long. It's just kind of always been the mindset. I mean, it was honestly probably within 2 years of starting my career, I got into medical. I didn't choose it. I mean, everybody asks, yes, you do feel really good about it, but maybe I take it for granted. Because everybody who hires, they're all so motivated to try to help other people. And I guess I've just not been in an environment where I wasn't. And so I wouldn't say I ever had to choose it. It kind of chose me. I guess the testament is I'm still in it.
Yeah.
Like I wasn't motivated to run away from the regulatory side. Because like I said, some people automotive, like they just love, they grew up, they love cars. They want to get into that car business, right? They want to be part of it. And other things. So for me, it's where I fell. And I think the testament is I'm still in it.
The doors opened and
Yeah.
you just kind of stepped in.
And you
stepped
could have
through.
easily gone cars because you love cars.
Well, I started out hoping for that, but I've actually learned from a lot of automotive engineers, unless you're like the lead engineer or the one who's, concepting the new look and feel, it's a pretty repetitive. Like you get specialized. Like the headlight guy is the headlight guy, or the industrial diner who does all the dashes. That woman. She's like, I do one dash after another, and I hear a lot of them get a little bit burned out.
Yeah.
Or if you're the brake person, everything about brakes and everything that you can possibly think about, but after 30 years of nothing but brakes, I think
you need a break.
Yeah,
You do.
I set you up for that one. That was like a easy one.
Yeah, that's easy.
Join us on this path, let's ignite the blaze. So grab your headphones tight, let's go for a ride. With every spin and twist, we'll cut and run and hide. The Prime Directive, where the laughter's alive. Society's reflections, let's help each other thrive. Politics and culture, oh what a blend. Join on the journey and let's set the trend. As we close the chapter, lend us your ear. The Prime Directive's calling, so let's pass that beer. The Prime Directive, where the laughter's alive. Society's reflections, let's help each other thrive. Politics conversations